Dealing with the condition itself is not enough.
Dear Mr. Massa, I'm just trying to mind my own business. What's the matter? It's just another day, another black king captured. I'm about to lose my brain, stuck inside this ghetto rapture. I got a lot of smoke. If you want it, you can have it. They want a hat trick, but this is black girl magic. Ain't talking about the kind that'll make you disappear, but I'm talking about the power of the melanin within. Ain't looking for trouble, but I'ma say this one time. I put two dupes up if you try to touch mine. We still want justice for Samir and Trayvon. You say you don't see color, but racism ain't blind. They targeting little kids whose skin look just like mine. So I'm paranoid, it's a war zone outside. And I'm a black queen, so if you ask me to step out of my car, you gon' have to snatch me. Cause I ain't going no damn well. Had to spend my whole life living unfair. Ancestors got my back and they right here. You can never understand, it's a nightmare. Living in my black shoes by the black rules. You can keep your handshake, I don't dap coons. The white man to go nuts if he can't shoot. But you all on his side like a damn fool. Make it make sense.
We are oppressed.
Queen.
We are exploited. We are downtrodden.
Make it make
Queen.
We are
sense.
denied not only civil rights, but even human rights.
Ahmadiyyah.
So the only way we're going to get some of this
Ahmadiyyah.
oppression and exploitation
Queen.
away from us or aside from us is come together
Queens.
against the common enemy. Who taught you to hate the texture of your
Ahmadiyyah.
hair? Who taught you to hate the color of your skin?
Ahmadiyyah.
Parents, pay attention to the books, the school system, even to your little children. Lies mixed with wisdom. His skin too bright, so he was blind to the prison. My skin just right, so I collide with division. You trying to pray to God, but we tired of religion. No savior saving, we got to save our savings. We used to pay miss, how we gon' make the slave rich? But who's to blame, and tell me why you complaining? We need a team effort just to rule the nation. Like a bad relationship, missing communication. We missing moderation. They're trying to get a poison to my population. No reparations. I'm getting tired of Satan.
We are oppressed.
I'm
Queen.
getting tired of waiting.
We are downtrodden.
Queen.
We are denied not only civil rights, but even human rights.
Ahmadiyyah.
So the only way we're going to get some of this
Ahmadiyyah.
oppression and exploitation.
Queen.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning back in once again to the original Queen Ahmadiyyah Shakur show. I'm your host, Queen Ahmadiyyah Shakur, and this is your daily vitamins. So as you're coming in, please feel free to go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Be sure to click that notification bell and click the word all so you're notified each time the Queen Goddess goes live. All right. So let's get into it. All right. Hello, Claudette. Measurement is in the house. All right. Lorraine is here. Deronda. Okay. Alice. Shout out to all of my loyal royals and everyone tuned into the Queen. King Leo is here. Okay, so let's get into it. And shout out to my moderators because y'all know they be putting in work. I don't know if they're putting in work today since I don't see any of them here yet. Hey, Nessa G. G from the land is in the house. All right. Okay, so before we get started, let's have a brief word from my sponsor at 12 Tribes.
Do not buy 12 Tribes on Earth hair growth oil and hair magic elixir unless you want super healthy, gorgeous hair that grows. They have a whole line of amazing hair growth products, including hair growth leave-in conditioner spray, hair growth shampoo, hair growth spray, and hair growth butter. I'm starting to sense a theme here. They include quality natural ingredients. They smell amazing, and you can see the results for yourself. So if you're looking for healthy hair growth for your natural or relaxed hair, try 12 Tribes on Earth today.
Okay, so don't forget you can purchase 12 Tribes hair oil at Etsy.com. Just look for Lisa Crafts. And also, she has a beard oil. You can also find her at Walmart.com. Okay, so let's get into it, honey. We have a lot to discuss, beloveds. Okay, we have a lot to discuss. Now, first things first, let's talk about Gla Maxwell. Let's talk about Gla Maxwell because I told you all that because she wants that pardon, she was going to lie and say, okay, yes, I'm calling her a liar. She was going to lie and say that Trump didn't do nothing. All right. Gla Maxwell, who wants a pardon, says she never saw Donald Trump in any inappropriate setting. Y'all hear this? I told y'all this was coming. So Maxwell, who's serving a 20-year prison stint, makes unfailingly flattering references to Trump. Okay, according to transcripts of the conversation released by the Justice Department on Friday. I want y'all to pay attention. So with that all being said, convicted ex-trafficker Gla Maxwell, who is seeking a pardon from Donald Trump, told top Justice Department officials during an interview last month that she has never witnessed the president in any inappropriate setting with young girls, okay, that were introduced to him by disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein. See right there, that's how you know she's lying. That's how you know she's lying, because first of all, she said she's never seen him in any inappropriate settings with young girls introduced to him by Jeffrey Epstein. Why would Jeffrey Epstein be introducing him to young girls? Okay? Are y'all catching on to that? Are y'all catching on to that? Why would Jeffrey Epstein be introducing Trump to young girls in the first place if he wasn't going to do something inappropriate? And also, that further proves that Trump absolutely knew what Epstein was doing, what he was involved in. Okay? I'm sorry. Please make it all make sense. Measure Man said she lied on the stand. She absolutely did. She was caught lying at least 3 times, to my recollection. Now, with that all being said, I find this also interesting, but let's continue. Maxwell, who's serving, oh, hold on, I read that already. Now, she says she never observed Trump receive a massage, which is the term prosecutors have said Epstein and Maxwell used as code language to describe sexual encounters with the girls, okay, the young girls, or the girls and the young women they recruited. Well, maybe she didn't see him because they probably went into a room and had the door shut, okay? So with that all being said, she says, I actually never saw the president in any type of massage setting. This is what she said in a hastily arranged interview that took place in Florida over the course of 2 days last month. I never witnessed the president in any inappropriate settings in any way. The president was never inappropriate with anybody. In the times that I was with him, he was a gentleman in all respects. Now, she's lying right there, because when has Trump ever been known to be a gentleman? In any respect. When has he ever been known to be a gentleman? This is the same man who said grab him in the ussy. Okay? This is the same man who was accused of giving Stormy Daniels hush money. All right? A corn star. Now, the Justice Department released the interview materials around the same time that it delivered the so-called Epstein files to Capitol Hill in response to a congressional subpoena. Now, the information in those files has not been made public as of yet. The moves are part of the department's continued efforts to quell the uproar from Trump's MAGA base over the administration's handling of the Epstein files. So in February, DOJ released what it called the first phase. This was the first phase of documents related to the Epstein investigation, which has been a fixation of some of the president's supporters. But the limited materials it disclosed to far-right influencers only further infuriated Epstein conspiracy theorists. These people are not conspiracy theorists. These are people who want answers, okay, including myself. It has long been public that Trump, along with other prominent figures, had a relationship with Epstein and was referenced in documents released in court cases involving him. Now, Trump hasn't been accused of any wrongdoing tied to Epstein. The fact that he's tied to Epstein speaks volumes within itself. Maxwell was convicted at a jury trial in 2021 of having aided and participated in Epstein's trafficking ring, which the government has said victimized more than 1,000 young women and girls. Epstein died in a jail in 2019 while awaiting trial for the trafficking charges. Prosecutors called Maxwell a serial liar. That's exactly what she is. Okay, why should we believe anything that she says? And also charged her with perjury, but dropped those counts after her conviction on other charges. Well, I should say that, of course, none of us should be the least bit surprised. Mel said Trump must think we're stupid. Of course he does. Of course he does. Some of his supporters actually are stupid. Okay? But not the rest of us. We have sense enough to know what's going on here. Okay? And so please pay attention. Now, with that all being said, Trump is supposed to declare a national emergency just so he can keep those troops in Washington. Let's get into it. And if you all missed the morning broadcast, please go back and watch.
Had any conversations with Mike Johnson and John Thune about where they're going to get that money from?
Which money?
You said this morning they're going to get $2 billion from Congress to help clean up.
Yeah, I've spoken to Mike Johnson. I've spoken to John Thune, the Senate, the House. And I think it's going to be very easy to get. It's going to be not a lot of money. I wouldn't even know where to spend the number that you mentioned, but it's going to be money to beautify the city. Yeah, they're ready. Everybody wants to save D.C. In one way, it's the easiest. The violence was more than any other city in the country, actually, by far. It may have been more than any other city in the world, if you could think. We looked at some of the worst cities in the world, it was worse. And that's why it angers me to see the mayor saying about how they have it on the side. Not on the slide, it was worse than ever. We have no problem getting that money. That money will come out of Congress. I think it'll be even bipartisan.
And it's the plan.
I mean, I would imagine Democrats would vote for that one.
It's the plan to get it before the September 30 spending deadline on the Hill.
Well, I don't know if there is a deadline, because if I declare a national emergency, which this was, that ends the deadline. So, I mean, I keep seeing about a 30-day deadline, of which we have 22 days left or something. But if I think we're in great shape here, that's one thing. But if I don't, I'm going to just say it's a national emergency. And if I have a national emergency, I can keep the troops there as long as I want. If people are not going to want to have the troops in 30 days, it's one thing to get them out. It's another thing to keep them out for a long period of time.
We thank you for watching. And
See, this is the thing right here. Trump's doing whatever the hell he wants to do, whether it's within the letter of the law or not, whether it's against the Constitution or not, and nobody's saying anything. As I keep telling you guys, nobody's doing anything except complaining. What are the Democrats going to do about all of this? Okay? What are they going to do about this? Jasmine Crockett's not even really saying anything. She has so much to say about the immigration, and all of that, speaking up for the immigrants, but not saying anything about all of the nefariousness that Trump is getting involved in, okay, or that he's invoking. Trump targets Chicago and New York as Hegseth orders weapons for D.C. troops. Okay, let's talk about it. Okay, President plots expansion of his crime crackdown as Pentagon chief says troops patrolling D.C. streets will be armed. All right, now they're going to be walking around with guns. All right, how do you think that's going to turn out? And didn't I tell you all this is going to happen? I said this isn't going to be the end of it. Now, he's starting with D.C., but of course, he's going to go to other states. Okay, one by one. Where people who look like me are predominantly, he'll go to those areas. We already know that. So Donald Trump has threatened to take his federal crackdown on crime and city cleanliness to New York and Chicago, as the Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth ordered that National Guard troops patrolling the streets of Washington, D.C. under federal control will now be armed. The U.S. president talked to reporters in the Oval Office and said, when ready, we will go to Chicago. Chicago's a mess. He added that then the administration will help with New York amid the controversial and aggressive federal efforts to control leading Democratic voting cities, each of which has a Black mayor. Okay, are y'all paying attention? So on the issue of suddenly announcing that it would now arm the federalized troops in D.C., the Defense Department did not immediately offer any other details about the new development or why it was needed. The step is an escalation in the federal government's rare intervention into policing in the nation's capital and came as nearly 2,000 National Guard members are stationed in the city. Now, earlier this week, hundreds of troops from several Republican-led states arrived to bolster the D.C. National Guard. The Pentagon and the U.S. Army had said last week that troops would not carry weapons. Well, we knew that was a lie. Okay, we knew this was coming. Now, the city had been informed about the intent for the National Guard to be armed. A person familiar with the conversation said this earlier in the week. The person was not authorized to disclose the plans and spoke on the conditions of anonymity. A defense official told CNN, they said, at the direction of the Secretary of Defense, Joint Task Force, JTFDC members supporting the mission to lower the crime rate in our nation's capital will soon be on mission with their service-issued weapons consistent with their mission and training. You know, this is going to lead to disaster, people. Watch what I tell you. Trump took command of the D.C. Washington Police Department earlier this month and deployed the National Guard under laws and constitutional powers that gave the federal government more sway on the nation's capital than other cities. The U.S. president claims that crime and homelessness in the district constitute a crisis against the objections of local leaders. Now, elsewhere, the National Guard is under the jurisdiction of the relevant state, where the state governor is the force's commander-in-chief and can deploy the military in case of emergency. In rare circumstances, the federal government takes control of a state's National Guard in what is deemed a national emergency, typically at the request of the state governor in question. Now, earlier this summer, Trump federalized the California National Guard over the objection of the state's governor, Gavin Newsom, in an almost unprecedented abnormality, sending troops into parts of Los Angeles to counter protest against immigration and customs enforcement, i.e. ICE. Hex's orders came just a day after Jeanine Piro, the District of Columbia's top federal prosecutor, instructed prosecutors to pursue the most serious charges possible in cases stemming from recent arrest, limiting their discretion as the Trump administration intensifies its law enforcement presence in the Capitol. That directive, first reported by the New York Times, was issued this week and narrows the ability of line prosecutors to decide how cases are charged and prioritized. By pushing for the maximum charges allowed, the new policy could lead to longer prison terms for convicted defendants. Now, in line with President Trump's directive to make D.C. safe, U.S. Attorney Piro has made it clear that the old way of doing things is unacceptable. This is what spokesman Tim Lauer told the newspaper, saying that she directed her staff to charge the highest crime that is supported by the law and the evidence. Piro, who was formerly a Fox News host, has been a prominent figure in the administration's law enforcement push. She has also pressed for changes to local laws that she argues treat juvenile offenders too leniently. The D.C. Attorney's Office holds a unique position overseeing federal and local prosecutions since the District of Columbia is not a state. Now, the office has long debated how to handle low-level arrests made by the city's police department. According to the White House, federal agents have made more than 630 arrests as of Thursday, though the Justice Department has not clarified how that figure compares with typical city police numbers. While Piro has committed to filing the toughest charges possible in most cases, she has also relaxed enforcement of one local gun law. This week, she directed prosecutors not to pursue felony charges against people for possessing rifles or shotguns within the city, despite a D.C. law that prohibits them. So you know who she's talking about, the people that look like her. Now, the policy does not apply to cases involving violent crimes or individuals barred from owning firearms. This is what Piro said in a statement to CNN. She said that the change follows guidance from the U.S. Supreme Court and the Justice Department Solicitor General. On Thursday, Trump declared his takeover of the Metropolitan Police Department to be a success. He had previously signaled that he would target other cities, such as Baltimore, Oakland, and another mission in Los Angeles, as well as New York and Chicago, which are all strongly Democratic voting and run by Black mayors. The Maryland governor, Westmore, said to CNN that crime was dropping in Baltimore as a result of community violence prevention efforts, and he would never activate the National Guard for theatrics. Baltimore's Mayor Brandon Scott also spoke to CNN, accusing Trump of singling out Black cities. And Moore said that the cities the president was now targeting are places he's never even been, streets that he's never even walked. Okay, I want y'all to pay attention. Now, this man has lost it. Well, I can't even say that because he's been a fool. Okay, he's been a whole fool. Meanwhile, you have Pam Bondi sitting there pretending that everything's going so great and that the people of DC are so thrilled and that Trump's been so nice to the police there and they love him. He's been feeding them burgers and fries and all of that. Okay? Who cares what the police think? What about the leaders there? What about the officials who are supposed to be running things? But Trump's taking it out of their hands and into his. Okay? I find it all so interesting. Likes up, everyone, please like and share. Now he's talking about firing federal governor Lisa Cook if she doesn't resign. And yes, this is a Black woman, Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook, during an open board meeting. Okay, so President Donald Trump said Friday that he will fire Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook if she doesn't resign. He said what she did was bad, so I'll fire her if she doesn't resign. Now, Trump's comment came days after Federal Housing Finance Agency Director William Pulte alleged that Cook had committed mortgage fraud. Isn't Trump the one to be talking about somebody committing mortgage fraud after the fraud that he committed by hiking up, inflating the value of his own properties? But they only charged him with civil fraud. And then the money that he was ordered to pay, the settlement, well, he doesn't even have to pay it now. Okay? So in a letter to Attorney General Pam Bondi, Pulte alleged that Cook falsified bank documents and property records to acquire more favorable loan terms, potentially committing mortgage fraud. That is literally exactly what Trump did. Y'all listening to this? That's exactly what Trump was accused of, if memory serves me correct. Trump previously said on Wednesday that Cook must resign now. The Federal Reserve declined to comment. Now, on Thursday, Pulte told, and I think this is Pulte, it's P-U-L-T-E, and maybe Pulte, but I think it's Pulte. Now, anyway, on Thursday, Pulte told the Fox Business Network that he believed the president has ample cause to fire Lisa Cook. The only reason that a member of the Federal Reserve Board of Governors can be fired is for cause or some form of wrongdoing. Cook responded to Trump and Pulte in a statement on Wednesday saying, I learned from the media that FHFA Director William Pulte posted on social media that he was making a criminal referral based on a mortgage application from 4 years ago, before I even joined the Federal Reserve. I have no intention of being bullied to step down from my position because of some questions raised in a tweet, she said. Now, Cook added that she intends to take any questions about my financial history seriously as a member of the Federal Reserve, and so I am gathering the accurate information to answer any legitimate questions and provide the facts. Now, Trump and Pulte's attacks on Cook are the latest in a long-running pressure campaign against the central bank and its top officials as Trump seeks lower interest rates. Cook's removal from the Fed would open a third seat for a Trump appointee. Now, in the coming months, Trump will nominate a new Fed chair as well as a governor. Both of those officials would hold a permanent vote on the Fed's 12-member rate seating committee. Already seated on the Fed's board are Trump appointees Michelle Bowman and Christopher Walker. I'm telling you all, this man is just doing whatever, and he's also coming after his political enemies. So in case you guys don't know, Kash Patel wrote a book where he talked about government gangsters, okay? He talked about government gangsters, and in this book, mind you, he listed Trump's enemies. It's called Government Gangsters, the Deep State, the Truth, and the Battle for Our Democracy, they say. Now, within that, he listed at least 60 people that were enemies of Trump's, okay? And it looks like Trump's coming after every last one. Okay, please pay attention, because now he's coming after John Bolton. He's had this man, the FBI raid this man's house, and I'm pretty sure that sooner than later, likely soon, he's going to have this man indicted, because this man has been a public critic of his, and they've been going back and forth. And here is one of the reasons that I believe, well, not that I believe, this is one of the reasons that I know why Trump is after him right here for saying things such as this. Likes up, everyone, please like and share. Thank you in advance. Yes, Aqua Girl Rising, he absolutely is so childish.
Earlier today, I spoke with former National Security Advisor to President Trump in his first term, Ambassador John Bolton. You might remember there was a few. He was one of them, and he had plenty of thoughts about the summit. Let's listen. John, you have probably grown weary over the years of taking social media abuse from the president. I honestly get weary asking you about it, but there is a context here. The president said very unfair media is at work on my meeting with Putin, constantly quoting fired losers and really dumb people like John Bolton, who just said that even though the meeting is on American soil, Putin has already won. The president objects to that characterization. How do you defend it?
Well, I think what this summit does for Putin is sets the stage for what he needs to do to Trump, which is get him back under control, get him back under his KGB trained manipulation. And it manifests itself in a number of ways. Putin is an international pariah leading a rogue state that committed unprovoked aggression against Ukraine. Trump has brought him to an American military base in Alaska and put him in the center of the world spotlight in a picture of the two of them shaking hands that will be on the front page of every paper in the world the day after. That's legitimization that Putin paid no price for whatever. Moreover, the way the summit is structured is there's no Vladimir Zelensky of Ukraine. There are no pesky Europeans around. Putin has Trump for a scheduled 4 hours one-on-one to try to work his magic to restore the Donald Vladimir friendship. And if he does, then he intends to use it to sell his peace plan and for other objectives. Putin couldn't have asked for a better set of circumstances.
And I'm confused, John, maybe you are as well, about what the White House actually says this is about. The president at times talks about a ceasefire. At times he talks about feeling out the situation. At times he talks about taking a temperature. Those seem to be inconsistent and somewhat wayward.
Well, I think there's a story here we haven't heard in full length about how he went from last Friday talking about land swaps and changing Ukraine's constitution to today saying there's a 25% chance it'll be a total failure. I think there's a real miscommunication by Steve Witkoff, his special envoy. I don't think he heard what Putin told him accurately in Moscow. I think they jumped on this summit because Trump saw it as a vehicle to help get his Nobel Peace Prize before they really figured out that what Putin conveyed to Witkoff about his idea for a peace plan for Ukraine represented no change whatever from longstanding Kremlin thinking. And so the chances of there being a breakthrough here, I think they finally began to realize in the White House, were dropping like a stone. That's why they're trying to downplay expectations. Now, anything can happen tomorrow, but the best guess is we won't get much of anything. I think you've already, by the way, seen the beginning of Putin's manipulation of Trump in a statement he issued in Moscow this morning, praising Trump for this effort to achieve peace being serious and energetic. And by going on to say, you know, we've got a lot of things to talk about, talking about the New START treaty expiring next year. Let's talk about strategic arms control, you know, like big powers do, not this little Ukraine stuff. So I think I wish I'd be there in the one-on-one as a fly on the wall. I think Putin's going to lay it on pretty thick.
And to your point, John, Vladimir Putin wants to talk about everything but Ukraine. He wants to talk about economics. He wants to talk about rare earth minerals. He wants to talk about arms reductions, everything but the conflict in Ukraine, which he clearly wants to continue or intends to continue.
Yeah, and the latest is, if I understand the media reports correctly, is Trump saying now it's not. I don't really expect a ceasefire to come out of this meeting. I expect another meeting with Putin and Zelensky. So this is just fine with Putin, despite Trump's threats from a couple of weeks ago. No new sanctions have been imposed on Russia. No new sanctions have been imposed on China for its purchases of oil and gas from Russia over the past 3+ years. Only India has been singled out for secondary sanctions by Trump, and that's had the effect of driving India back toward Russia and back toward China, undercutting years of effort by Americans of both parties to try and bring India closer to the United States. So I think the White House strategy here is obviously not well thought out, and I think Trump could leap at the opportunity to say, let's launch strategic arms negotiations tomorrow. That's our big plus out of this meeting. And that alone would be a reason not to put sanctions on Russia.
And John, help my audience understand what Putin wants to achieve, even if the Ukraine situation is discussed. Essentially, I will take all the territory inside Ukraine that my troops currently occupy, and the Europeans can put a reassurance force there if they want to, but that will just give me time in the sweet by and by to retrofit, rearm, and get ready for the next.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Plus, Trump has already committed that Ukraine can't join NATO. This is very similar. The Russian position is very similar to what J.D. Vance floated during the 2024 election. And if Putin can get Trump buy-in in his plan, maybe make some changes that Trump suggests, and make Trump, in effect, not a disinterested party, but an advocate for the Putin approach, would put Zelensky and the Ukrainians and the Europeans in a very bad position.
What are Zelensky's options looking at all this tomorrow?
Well, I think he's got to make the pitch to the Europeans that they've got to step up their purchases from the U.S. If that's, as J.D. Vance said last weekend, we're not giving anything more to Ukraine. And Trump himself has basically said that they're going to have to buy it, because if he can't get weapons, ammunition, and other military assistance, particularly intelligence, Ukraine's going to be under strain. Russia's 3.5 times their size. They're fighting a war of attrition, and that may be beginning to have its effect on the battlefield.
You know, John, that Zelensky can only say he will give up no territory. He can't say anything else until he's forced to accept that harsh reality. Is it a harsh reality eventually?
I think it is, but look, that's for negotiation. You don't, unless you're Donald Trump, negotiate in public. If I were Zelensky, I'd say exactly what he's saying now. We're not giving up anything.
Okay, so you all heard that. So now this is what's going on. Let's get into it, because this man has been someone who's been criticizing Trump for quite some time. Like I said, going back and forth. And now Trump sent the feds on him. Okay, he's having this man investigated. Please pay attention. FBI conducts a search at Trump critic John Bolton's home and his office as part of a resumed national security investigation. Now, I find it all so interesting.
Thanks for jumping back on. Your reaction to this news, a court-authorized FBI raid of John Bolton's home.
Yeah, well, it's really stunning. I mean, I don't think many people saw this one coming, but so let's level set exactly why the FBI is here. Now, of course, we don't have the substance of what it is they're investigating, but we do know that if they're at his home, they have to have a federal search warrant, which means they went in front of a federal court, a U.S. Judge, and presented probable cause that evidence of a crime exists in that location. There's absolutely nothing, I think, publicly known about allegations of criminal activity against John Bolton. We know he's been involved in disputes with the former Trump administration over whether or not he had, improperly had classified information in his book. So I think that's logically something that people think of as a possibility here, but we really don't know yet, because we haven't and likely will not see the affidavit that supports that search warrant. Typically, those affidavits are not made public until after and only if someone is charged publicly and indicted.
And Andy, I mean, to remind everyone, I mean, and anyone who watches the program will know this very clearly, because, I mean, Bolton was on just this week talking to us, that since he has left the administration, in the book that he wrote about the first Trump administration, called The Room Where It Happened, and since he has been a very vocal critic of the president and his policies, kind of up and down. And Donald Trump has gone after John Bolton on social media many a time. So there is quite a bit of animosity between these two people outside of the work that they did together. What can John Bolton was called by CNN and said that he's not entirely sure what's going on and he was going to look into it himself. What do you expect is the first thing that we are going to learn about this? Likely hearing it from Bolton himself, I assume.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's probably the likely first source of information. I have absolutely no doubt that Mr. Bolton will have very good counsel, and they will attack this in a full-throated and complete way, as they should, right? So we know that Mr. Bolton has said critical things about the president. That's not illegal. That's not a crime. That's pretty squarely within your First Amendment right in this country. And in fact, you shouldn't be. You're not supposed to be. The Department of Justice and the FBI have all kinds of policies absolutely prohibiting investigating people for the exercise of their First Amendment rights. And so if that's what's going on here, and there's all kinds of reasons to believe that that might be the true motivation. We know that the president is embarked on a pretty extensive effort to go after his perceived enemies, to,
he said he was running on retribution. Yeah.
That's right. I am your retribution. That's what he told his supporters.
Yeah, that's absolutely what he said. That's exactly what he said. And here's the thing. Michael Cohen said that he was also raided, if I'm not mistaken. And so first they raided John Bolton's home, but now they've expanded it to his office in Washington. And I find it interesting. Now, I don't support John Bolton, but my point is Trump is going after anyone who speaks out against him. And I do believe that's why many of the Democrats are silent. Like they're just complaining amongst themselves. They're not doing anything to stop his foolishness. Okay, please pay attention.
Michael, what's your reaction to the raid of John Bolton's house? Hi.
Well, I've been there. As you know, years back, they raided my home, hotel, and my law office as well. Let me be very clear about something. What we have here is the Trump team, the DOJ, going through, for example, the book, The Room Where It All Happened, which I actually had read while I was in solitary confinement. And they've noticed.
Queen Luchiku says, if people came after you, then you would, and you get a chance to go back at them, you would too. Well, that depends on what type of situation we're talking about. Okay, did they come at me for lawlessness? Okay, something I was doing illegal that I should have had people come at me for? Or was it just because they didn't like me and they were just hating or something like that? And at the end of the day, when you're in the office of president, what you don't get to do, at least you're not supposed to be able to do, is weaponize the feds to go after people simply because they spoke out against you. I wouldn't do that. If someone spoke against me and said things about me that I didn't like, which people quite frankly do every day, what I would do is just go back at them with facts and receipts. Okay, that's what I would do, beloved. Now, you may be on the Trump bandwagon and you say Trump's not scared of anything. Yes, he is. He's scared of what's going to come out if the Epstein files are revealed. He's scared of Putin. Okay, Trump is a coward. Please don't talk about him like he's big and bad, because he is not. That's why he's Putin's bitch. But let's continue.
That there are many aspects of this book that appear to be of national security importance. And that's what I believe that they predicated this raid upon. I also believe that there's no doubt that he will be indicted. They will find documents once they go through, for example, his computer. They'll find the manuscript. They'll see emails going back and forth between John Bolton, his people, as well as maybe the attorney that reviewed it for, for legal ease and for questions. I believe that he needs to lawyer up, and very much like what happened 2 years ago, Reality Winner. That's a name that nobody talks about anymore. One document that was about Russian election interference ultimately had her incarcerated. She was a whistleblower, had her incarcerated for years. And I predict that John Bolton is going to suffer the same consequence.
What you're talking about here, I think you bring up two potential threads. And again, there's still a lot that we don't know about what the underlying reasons were to ultimately obtain this warrant and search.
Queen Luchiku says, the American people don't care about the Epstein saga. We care about our bank accounts, lower mortgages, food, and gas. Well, we can care about all of those things, including the Epstein files, okay? And clearly the American people do care about it. That's why Trump has been trying to deflect from it. That's why his own base has been turning on him, because they want to know about those files, okay? Now, I don't know what makes you think you can speak for all of America. Speak for yourself. You may not care about the Epstein saga, but many of us do.
Bolton's home and his office. But you're talking about two things. The first is the book that he wrote that was already the subject of some legal scrutiny of whether or not he went through the appropriate channels of basically getting the information that he was exposed to during his time in the White House approved to then use in the book. The Trump administration contention at that point had been that that information was classified. Bolton denied that. Ultimately, that suit was done away with in 2021 in the early days of Biden's Department of Justice. The other thing you're talking about is the potential for media leaks as part of the scrutiny here. I think overall, we don't know yet what we're seeing, but when you look at what you've seen happen here and you hear the president, as he said in the last hour or so, say, I'm actually the chief law enforcement officer, what does that make you think about the Department of Justice?
He's crossed yet another name off of his enemies list. He's doing it to Tish James. He's doing it to Adam Schiff. He's doing it to Alvin Bragg. And there are many more on that list that will ultimately suffer a very similar consequence. You know, one thing when I heard him say, you know, that I am the chief law enforcement, yes, that's an actually accurate statement. I also just want to correct you, Ali, where you turned around and you said that that matter had been decided. Remember, that matter was decided under a Biden administration. The belief
no, not decided, dropped.
Was dropped, but that doesn't necessarily mean that under this Trump administration, they won't try to revive it in a different manner.
Yeah, I think that's important here.
Okay, so now let's talk about this foolish attorney by the name of Alina Habba. This woman just sounds like an idiot, okay? A complete idiot. Let's get into it.
U.S. Attorney in New Jersey, Alina, well, on that part, I think having the support of the president, which I know you have, and having the support of the Attorney General is Alina Habba, the acting U.S. Attorney in New Jersey. Alina, well, on that part, I think having the support of the president, which I know you have, and having the support of the Attorney General should be reassuring. The fact that this is, you know, a politically motivated, Obama-appointed judge should not surprise anybody.
Sean, it's been real in New Jersey. I will tell you this. Number one, I was the nominee to become the U.S. attorney. And Cory Booker and Andy Kim, who I have never to this day spoken to in my life, despite my attempts to meet them, have truly, truly done us a disservice. And frankly, same with Senator Grassley, by holding up a traditional blue slip, not a law, and not allowing a lot of the president's picks to go through and be voted on by Senate. I didn't even get to that point. Then fast forward, it goes to the judges, 17 federal judges in the state of New Jersey, 15 of which are Obama and Biden appointed, that just like, frankly, we saw with Tish James, tried to use their seat for political motivation. I am the pick of the president. I am the pick of Pam Bondi, our attorney general, and I will serve this country like I have for the last several years in any capacity. You might try and change my title. You might try and fight me. But just like today with New York, we will win. We always do. It just takes time. But it's disturbing what we're seeing. It's not surprising, but it's disturbing. They think they have a voice for 5 minutes. They try and be activists. And Pam Bondi called it like it is. The attorney general said it today. We will not fall to rogue judges. We will not fall to people trying to be political when they should just be doing their job, respecting the president. And you can't get rid of the president. Almost 100 million people voted for him, and he is still and will be forever the 45th and 47th president of the United States.
Now, this is a case, I want to remind people about this, where you had an attorney general in the state of New York that ran on a platform to get one man, to go after one person. That was Donald Trump. Also to go after one organization, the Trump organization, one family, the Trump family. Get Trump, as Alan Dershowitz famously wrote in a book, and that was the title of the book. And in this particular case, if you recall, Judge Erdogan, because you were in the courtroom, you were there, and I've never seen a case like this in my life. They made a valuation of Mar-a-Lago at $18 million. You know, a brief perusal of Zillow will show you it is a ridiculous valuation. And this came up in one of the judge's writings here, that this was obscene and absurd, and expert witnesses were not listened to or not allowed to talk. And it's more like $1 billion property, not an $18 million property. That's how twisted and unjust the system is. And the sad part, Alina, to me, is not one liberal Democrat stood up and said, that's not right. Not one liberal Democrat, nobody in the legacy media pointed out the real valuation of Mar-a-Lago. Not one Democrat cared. And it's $1 billion property, 18 million, and a judge gets away with that. And you get an attorney general that runs on destroying one person. And that was acceptable to the left. That should upset every American.
Well, it destroyed them, Sean. It destroyed them. Look at them right now. They're in chaos. They're disrupted. And you've got leaders of the party too busy with a U.S. attorney in New Jersey than to look at the facts. Here's what they did. They went after the president and his corporation, and they lost. They lost, like we said they would. They lost. And if you look at Judge Friedman's dissent, it was perfectly stated. They looked at people like Michael Cohen to stand on their prosecutions. That's pathetic. It's deranged. And they lost on it. They lost on it in the long term. What they did was try to tie him up, and it didn't work. They're successful. The president is now the 47th president, and they lost. And this is the same thing they're going to continue to do. So get off your politics and be a judge. Do the right thing by this country. That's what we deserve.
If she really cared about doing the right thing about this country, if any of them did, we wouldn't have a president who's a whole convicted felon. And it really gets me. It makes me think that many of these people are PDF files because they're absolutely upholding and, you know, supporting a PDF file, i.e. Trump. Okay, because I'm pretty sure that's what he is. All right, so with that all being said, Queen Luchiku says they in on it when you find out the truth, how that's going to help you, your household, with all due respect, Queen. Who's in on it? Are you talking about the Democrats? Listen, here's the thing. As it pertains to the Epstein files, I do believe the Democrats and Republicans alike were involved in some of these things. I mean, we've mentioned Bill Clinton on here several times, as well as Hillary and others. Okay, so that doesn't surprise me in the least. A lot of these politicians are corrupt, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the president who's in office right now, who lied and said that he was going to drain the swamp, who lied and said he was going to release the Epstein files, only to come back later and tell us that there are no files. There was no list. Okay, so I have a problem with that. Okay, it just lets me know that he's a liar who lies, and as close to ties as he had to Epstein, and Gla Maxwell even saying herself that he didn't do anything inappropriate with the young girls that he was introduced to by Jeffrey Epstein. Why the hell would Epstein introduce him to young girls? Unless he was going to do something inappropriate. The fact that he knew and was best friends for a decade at least with Epstein, who I'm sure he knew was a whole PDF file, should give us all questions, okay? Should give us all cause for pause. That's what I want to say about that. And trust me, I know exactly about these parties and the likelihood that many of them from both sides are involved in the Epstein debacle. Trump threatens massive sanctions and tariffs, and if Putin and Zelensky don't meet, I'll see whose fault it is, he says. Now he's talking tough, but I want y'all to pay attention, because why is he including Zelensky in this? Well, because he knows better than to just come after Putin, okay? I want y'all to pay attention. President Trump said Friday he was considering massive sanctions and tariffs if Russian President Vladimir Putin and Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky failed to set up a meeting to discuss peace negotiations. Well, he should probably go ahead and get ready to start those sanctions, because I'm pretty sure Putin doesn't want to have a sit down with Zelensky. He says, I'll see whose fault it is. If there are reasons why, I would understand that. Okay, this is what he told reporters in the Oval Office after showing off a glossy photo of himself and Putin at last week's summit in Alaska. Ha! Trump is so stupid. Like, could he be on Putin's jock any harder? Look at this. This fool sitting here holding up this picture. Okay? I want y'all to pay attention. Y'all see this? Look how the guy beside him is looking at him. Look at him. He's so thrilled. I mean, is he Putin's groupie or what? Okay? I'm starting to think that he might be Putin's side bitch. Okay, please pay attention. This is all hilarious to me. What say you all? But let me continue. So anyway, goes on to say, I absolutely cannot hold up that darn picture. I know exactly what I'm doing. We're going to see whether or not they have a meeting. That will be interesting, he said. And if they don't, why didn't they have a meeting? Because I told them to have a meeting. But I'll know in 2 weeks what I'm going to do. I have a pretty good idea already. Trump also said he was unhappy with Russian airstrikes hitting a U.S.-owned electronics factory in Ukraine Thursday and warned in a menacing tone that I'd better be very happy with peace talk progress. Sit down somewhere, Trump. Oh, so he's upset about it, but you're not going in on Putin. That's what you're not doing. Okay, that's what you're not doing. He's not going to do a damn thing. That's what he's not going to do because Putin has him in check. Okay. I was just sent a picture by someone who wants to be at FIFA World Cup events badly, he says, holding up an image that showed the U.S. president's tie slightly askew. He may be coming and he may not, depending on what happens. I thought it was a nice picture of him, Trump said after a dramatic pause. Okay of me, but nice of him. I thought it was very nice that it was sent to me. Trump added of peace talks, saying, over the next 2 weeks, we're going to find out which way it's going to go, and I better be happy. Ha! Trump said he better be happy. Honey, Putin's not going to do a damn thing Trump says. Okay, y'all know it. Y'all know it. But the president left his options open, saying, then I'm going to make a decision as to what we do. And it's going to be a very important decision. And that's whether or not it's massive sanctions or massive tariffs or both. Or do we do nothing and say, it's your fight? Trump, sit down somewhere, okay? Sit your stupid ass down. This is all so ridiculous as far as I'm concerned. Okay, Nicole said, did Trump go to college? Well, if he did, he probably made D's and F's, beloved. He probably made D's and F's, all I'm saying, honey, because he's not that smart, okay? Let's face it. Let's call a thing a thing. He is just not that smart. All right, so that all being said, let's talk about the Democrats, because word on the curb is that many of their voters are switching over to the GOP. And that's likely because they're not doing This is all very interesting. Likes up, everyone, please like and share.
May lie in voter registration data. As national correspondent Matt Gelka explains, the alarm bells could be ringing in a majority of states around the country.
New data reported by the New York Times could be a major warning sign for the Democratic Party. Voter registration data showed a party that is rapidly losing voters in every state that tracks registration by political party. From 2020 to 2024, the data showed a 4.5 million voter swing from Democrat to Republican in the 30 states tracking party affiliations, with Dems losing 2.1 million registered voters and Republicans gaining 2.4 million. Maryland businessman Ed Hale, who just announced a run for governor as a Republican, is a former Democrat who switched parties.
I don't see much that I agree with the way the Democrats are going right now. I just don't.
The 30 states include 4 key battlegrounds: Arizona, Nevada, Pennsylvania, and North Carolina, where Democratic voter registration advantages were eroding. In Pennsylvania, for example, the data showed that Democrats had more than 500,000 more registered voters than Republicans in 2020. That number is down to around 53,000 as of this summer.
Democrats for years and years now have faced a branding problem, a messaging problem that has just led to people not only continuing their loyalty, but especially with younger voters, them choosing the other team.
Shedding voter registration advantages over the 4-year period may have proved to be a missed warning sign for the party. Democrats suffered huge losses in 2024 when they lost the White House and the popular vote to Donald Trump. Democrats have been trying to forge a path forward, with DNC Chair Ken Martin acknowledging earlier this week the party has work to do, but said they're starting to find their footing by taking on Trump policies and Republican redistricting efforts.
We cannot be the only party that's playing by the rules anymore. That's why I said this isn't your grandfather's Democratic Party where you bring a pencil to a knife fight. We are bringing a bazooka to a knife fight.
The data showed the Democratic Party was especially struggling with younger voters and Latino voters, groups that had previously reliably been signing up as Democrats. Reporting in Washington, I'm Matt Gelka.
Okay, so y'all heard that. Speaking of Trump going to college, he actually got a BS in economics from the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania, they say. I just looked it up. And Trump said that he earned the highest grades possible in 1988. Trump, I'm sure that you paid someone to do your college work for you. Okay, I'm sure that's what he did. But let's talk about this because, and here's the thing. Why do you all think that the Dems are losing voters? Why do you think people are switching from the Democrats to the GOP? Does anyone have a guess? I could only think that possibly it's because they're not doing anything. Like I keep telling you all for the past few weeks, all they're doing is complaining. Like they're not really doing anything to stop Trump. Where are the impeachment files? Okay. Where are the articles of impeachment? He should be taken up out of here at the end of the day and put in jail. Trump needs to be escorted from the White House, okay, in a gifted pair of silver bracelets and taken straight to prison. All right? That's what needs to happen. As far as I'm concerned, how is this man even allowed to get away with all of this stuff? Measurement said they're not taking any action. Exactly. I feel like that's why people are leaving. Okay, so now listen to this. The woke words Democrats use should be cut from their vocabulary. A new memo identifies 45 words and phrases for Democrats to avoid, alleging the terms turn voters off. They span 6 categories, from therapy speak to explaining away crime. Okay, so let's talk about this. Democrats seem to think they can talk their way out of political wilderness. Listen closely, and you can hear it through the din of their all caps Trumpian X feeds, their hours-long manosphere podcast interviews, and their frequent swearing. Nearly 10 months after the 2024 elections, and the party is still embroiled in self-recriminations over where they're talking and what they're talking about, and now the actual words they're even using, or more precisely, which words they shouldn't utter. So in a memo shared exclusively with Politico, the center-left think tank Third Way is circulating a list of 45 words and phrases they want Democrats to avoid using, alleging the terms put a wall between us and everyday people of all races, religions, and ethnicities. Now, it's a set of words that Third Way suggests people simply do not say, yet they hear them from Democrats. Well, don't y'all wonder what these words are? They span 6 categories, from therapy speak to explaining away crime, and put in sharp relief a party that authors say makes Democrats sound like the extreme, divisive, elitist, and obfuscatory enforcers of wokeness. Okay, this is what they say. Now, in the document titled, "Was It Something I Said?" Third Way argues that to please the few, we have alienated the many, especially on culture issues, okay, where other languages sound superior, haughty, and arrogant, according to the memo. Among the blacklisted terms, now let's get into it, okay? I'm going to tell you what some of these words are. I find it all interesting. Measurement says, if I hear another joyeth comes in the morning time from Dems, now they're sending cuss words in text messages. Okay, I find it also interesting, beloved. At the end of the day, who's coming up with all of this stuff? That's what I would like to know. Thank you for your insight into the topic and your contribution to the channel. Okay, peace, love, and blessings. Okay, so with that all being said, hold on, where was I? So anyway, And then they call them extreme, divisive, elitist, and obfuscatory enforcers of wokeness. Okay, so among the blacklisted terms are privilege, violence, as in environmental violence, dialoguing, triggering, othering, microaggression, holding space, body shaming, subverting norms, systems of oppression, cultural appropriation, Overton window, existential threat to, talking about the climate, democracy, and economy, radical transparency, stakeholders, the unhoused, food insecurity, housing insecurity, person who immigrated, birthing person, cisgender, dead naming, heteronormative, patriarchy, LGBTQIA plus, okay, allyship, incarcerated people, and involuntary confinements. Now, we are doing our best to get Democrats to talk like normal people and stop talking like they're leading a seminar in Antioch. This is what Matt Bennett, Third Way's Executive Vice President of Public Affairs, said. We think language is one of the central problems we face with normie voters, signaling that we are out of touch with how they live, think, and talk. Now, I was just wondering which one of these people, which one of these people in this organization were saying all of this, but it's obviously Matt Bennett, their executive. So in recent weeks, this has become a bit of a thing with comedians like Jimmy Kimmel and Sarah Silverman highlighting how insane Dems can sometimes sound. Also, elected officials like Delaware Representative Sarah McBride and Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear are begging their colleagues to just be normal again, saying people can't relate to something unless it has some edge about it. This is what Lene Erickson, Third Way Senior Vice President, tells Playbook, saying that, and we had shaved off all of our edges in an attempt to never make anyone upset about anything. The group doesn't know, that's a Black person talking about shaving off edges, and besides, her name is Lene. Now, the group doesn't base its list on any specific polling, and the authors don't offer specific counter recommendations for those terms, but they do outline the values their vision of the parties include. Or of the party includes. We will never abandon our values or stop doing things to protect those who need help, encouragement, trust, a second chance, acceptance, a fair shake, and the opportunity to pursue life, liberty, and happiness. But as the catastrophe of Trump 2.0 has shown us, the most important thing we can do for those people and causes is to build a bigger army to fight them. This is all in the memo, saying communicating in authentic ways that welcome rather than drive voters away would be a good start. Well, it sounds like they've already driven away some voters. Measurement says the fact that they think they are losing because of words is another entire issue itself. Most High take the wheel. Someone needs to. This is all so crazy. Thank you for your insight into the topic, beloved, and your contribution to the channel. Peace, love, and blessings. Retired Federal Police Banks, thank you, beloved, for your kind words. Says great news broadcast. And thank you for your contribution to the channel. Peace, love, and blessings. Now, with that being said, it's worth noting that in certain parts of the country, a lot of people, especially now, do talk in this language and use the phrases Third Way recommends against, even if it doesn't scream big tent enough. It's also worth noting an inherent irony in all of this. It's hard to police how politicians talk at the same time that you're asking them to be authentic. Now, the memo's author writes that we are not out to police language or ban phrases or create our own form of censorship. Truth be told, we have published papers that have used some of those words as well. But when policymakers are public-facing, the language we must use language that the language we use must invite, not repel, start a conversation, not end it, provide clarity and not confusion. The Democratic Party brand is as toxic across the country at this point, with way too many people, enough that there's no way for us to win a governing majority without changing that. This is what Erickson says. Okay. Part of the problem was that we were using words that literally no normal person used, that we were sticking to messages that were so overly scripted that they basically sounded like nothing. What about bright spots for the party? Erickson cited 3 potential 2028 Democratic presidential contenders who she says are good examples of how to communicate. She says Bashir, former Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, and Senator Ruben Gallego from Arizona. Saying Gallego is doing a great job talking about economic success. She says he goes into communities and he's like, I want you to have a big ass truck if that's what you want. Buttigieg, she says, is doing a great job of going into spaces that are maybe not hostile, but unusual spaces for him to be in and having real conversations about complicated topics like transgender people in sports and saying, you know, I think you should have empathy toward people that are figuring this issue out for the first time. And you should have empathy toward transgender kids and their families. But he's not afraid to say those things, and he's getting yelled at. Well, you know, y'all already know how I feel about that. Y'all already know how I feel about that, okay? As far as transgenders in female sports, I don't think so. Okay, I don't think so. Biological men should not be in female sports, period, ever. Nicole just gifted 5 memberships to the Queen's channel. Thank you, beloved. I appreciate you. Peace, love, and blessings. And you all shout out Nicole for being so generous and thoughtful. Okay. So, and Bashir is getting this so exactly right, talking about how these terms aren't even with those communities, the community's use, what they used to call themselves. She says, Bashir talking about the fact that justice involved individuals is not a thing that any justice involved individual would call themselves. They would call themselves incarcerated, call themselves convicted, or they would call themselves a whole lot of other things, but that's not what they or their families would call themselves. So inventing terms that the people that we're talking about and trying to protect don't even use, and then enforcing that that's the only way you can talk about those people is crazy. So can Democrats really talk their way back to power? Is an Aaron Sorkin-esque idea to think that everything can be solved by the right words and a compelling speech. And it's one that the party has been tantalized by on and off for decades. Of course, Democrats face bigger and deeper problems, a yawning voter registration gap among them, and are still figuring out which policies to advocate. Now, in some ways, Third Way is reaching the same political conclusion that VP J.D. Vance arrived at during his interview with Fox News. Saying, I mean, look, the autopsy for the Democrats, some free political advice for the president of the United States is stop sounding like crazy people. That's what Vance said. Vance's remarks came on the same day that he had burgers with the National Guard troops at Union Station, which is itself a glaring reminder of some of the stakes if Democrats don't get this right. Erickson mentioned crime as a key issue on which Democrats need to recalibrate, citing Trump's invasion of D.C., saying it shows that people don't think Democrats want to hold criminals accountable at all. Like, we don't care about violent crime and we don't care if someone gets hurt or someone hurts someone, that they should be held accountable. That's not true. We're afraid to say that because we're afraid that someone is going to criticize us for being too tough on crime. Third Way sees it as a place to start, saying we need to reflect on the ways that our bubble and our fear of being criticized by anyone on the left has led to a problem with both our policy and our language. Okay, this just sounds like a whole bunch of nothing as far as I'm concerned. Okay, that's what it sounds like, a whole bunch of nothing. And why are these words considered woke words? I have several questions. Okay, I have several questions at the end of the day. So with that all being said, everyone please hit that like button. Thank you in advance, beloveds. Now let's talk about these Black people getting fired for calling out racism. Okay? Nicole just gifted another 5 memberships to the channel. Thank you, beloved. That's 10 memberships. You all, please be shouting her out, okay? Because that's very generous of her. Okay, she just gifted 5 more memberships. Thank you, beloved. I appreciate you. Peace, love, and blessings. And remember, this weekend, on Sunday, I'm going to be doing True Crime Sundays, and it's going to be for members only. Okay, True Crime episode is going to be for members only. Now let's talk about these people getting fired for calling out racism. This is all crazy. So first of all, we have a black man who was fired. He was fired from Alabama's industrial company for exposing his coworker who called him the N-word. Well, he got the last laugh because he got a big payout. A federal judge in Alabama issued a judgment last month awarding nearly $1 million in damages to black millwright who alleged he was called the N-word by a coworker, then demoted and fired by an industrial services company after he complained. Now, I reported on this when this first happened, and it's really good to see that he got paid. Okay, the judgment of $978,000 ordered by U.S. Magistrate Judge Bradley Murray in Alabama was $338,000 more than a jury had awarded the plaintiff in May after hearing the racial discrimination case that Quentin Watts and his attorneys presented against this former employer, J&L Industries or J&L Industrial Services, LLC. So in May of 2022, Watts began working for J&L as a millwright on a project at a Georgia Pacific plant in Cedar Springs, Georgia. According to his lawsuit filed in February of 2024 and obtained by Atlanta Black Star, a millwright installs and maintains industrial equipment. Do you all remember when I reported on this? I have forgotten all about this story. So on Friday, 5 days into the job, Watts alleges that that as he was going to the tool trailer where a group of employees were having lunch, he heard coworker Robert Max say, "I see J&L hired this ninja," okay, with a hard R, "up in here," in reference to himself, the only black worker on the project and in that room. The racial epithet was also allegedly heard by 3 of his white coworkers who were upset about it and joined Watts in reporting the comment to their direct supervisor, Michael Pruitt, as well as to a project manager and the human resources director who was on site that day. Now, Pruitt told Watts that Max would be terminated for making the racial slur, a serious violation of company policy, according to the lawsuit. But when he got on the company bus for work that Monday, Watts saw Max and then realized that he was still employed. Yeah, they didn't want to fire him. So Watts then returned to the company's headquarters in Monroeville, Alabama, to report Max's racist behavior in person to more senior company officials. So he went above their heads, okay? He went above the chain of command, and that's likely what ticked him off because I did the same exact thing when I sued this company years ago, and I've already told you all that story. So did 2 of the white employees who were angry about the racial incident, and they were terminated after doing so, according to the complaint. In its court filings, J&L contends that Max admitted to using the N-word, but in another context. It doesn't matter what context. He should never have said it in the first place, ever, especially in the presence of a black person. But I'm sure he's lying, and it happened just as the man said it did. Now, his version of the incident is that he said he was going to have to ninja rig his faulty welding shield to get it to work, and then realized that Watts was nearby when he said it. Does that make it any better? And why do they call it ninja rigging something when they just throw something together? Okay, please pay attention. He said that he immediately apologized to Watts, who accepted his apology. Watts adamantly denies this, says absolutely lies, BS, didn't happen. So the company also said that Max was suspended for 3 days without pay for his conduct and not fired, since it accepted that the N-word epithet was not aimed at Watts. After Watts complained about Max's racist comments and the light punishment he was given, the complaint says he was not allowed to go back to his lucrative position working as a millwright at the Cedar Springs plant and was reassigned to the Monroeville transportation shop where he earned considerably less. While the base pay for both jobs was $28 per hour, he was missing out on an extra $2 an hour in an out-of-town pay per diem and overtime compensation by working as a mechanic in the transportation shop versus working in the field as a millwright, according to his lawsuit. You know, it's amazing to me that these people will fire multiple people all to protect one racist devil. Okay? One racist devil. This is all so egregious. A retired federal police bank says the Queen is brilliant. Thank you, beloved, for your kind words. I appreciate you. And thank you so much for your contribution to the channel. Peace, love, and blessings. So Watts says that he asked repeatedly to be deployed as a millwright, but was denied. Max, meanwhile, continued working at Cedar Springs and later at other field jobs as a millwright. The complaint also notes that after he reported Max for calling him the racial slur, Max began telling other employees that Watts's work was substandard and that he'd had to redo some of his work. On February the 2nd of 2023, Watts received a termination notice advising him that he was terminated due to reduction of force and job tasks complete, which the lawsuit says were false, pretextual reasons, and that the real reason he was laid off was in retaliation for reporting racial discrimination. Same thing happened to me. Now, the lawsuit asserts that Watts was a conscious and hardworking employee who had not received ever any write-ups or disciplinary actions for any reason, and that no one had ever complained to him about the quality of his work prior to his firing. In his termination paperwork, his performance was noted as good, and he was eligible for rehire. Now, his complaint filed in 2023 with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, also known as the EEOC, also noted that J&L was hiring for millwrights at the same time that they let Watts go. Okay, so they were full of crap. In its motion to, and for those of you who don't know, when you have a situation like this on your job, it is always best to follow the steps so that you can win your case. You go to the EEOC and then you tell them what happened, and they then conduct, if they deem that it's plausible and not frivolous, that is your complaint, then they conduct an investigation, which usually can take about 6 months, at least in my case, that's how long it took. And so then they conduct an investigation. If they deem that what you said that happened is credible, then they'll send you a letter giving you a right to sue. And then that's when you get the attorney. And it's always best to go about it that way, because now you have some ironclad proof that something nefarious was afoot. Okay, because the EEOC will absolutely dig for the dirt. All right, so that all being said, in its motion to dismiss the case, J&L maintained that the decision for Watts to remain in the Monroeville shop was a mutual decision made with Watts, and that it quickly became apparent after he was hired that Watts was not capable of performing millwright work, but his supervisors had retained him in hopes of providing some additional training. So they're saying his work was trash. He really didn't know what he was doing. And yeah, you know, we let him stay for a minute because we were going to try to help him out, see if he could get some more training, but he didn't get any better. So we had to let him go, sadly. That's their lie. Now, the company also argued that the nature of its work was cynical and that there were routinely layoffs of employees when work was slowed down. Okay, which it did started in October of 2022, eventually laying off 18 employees, both black and white, by February of 2023 when Watts was terminated. Well, you see, that might make sense if it had not been for the fact that the EEOC determined that they basically were still hiring people. Okay, if that's the case, how were you all hiring people? Okay, I'm gonna need them to. Okay, I'm gonna need them to make that make sense. Likes up, everyone, please. Don't forget to like and share. Thank you in advance. Metro Man says, when you do a RIF, those positions have been closed 30 days prior. My neighbor used to be SVP for EEOC. Then they dig and can file class action. Thank you for that tidbit of information, beloved, and thank you for your contribution. Peace, love, and blessings. Okay. So with that all being said, the company also argued that the nature of its work was cyclical and that it routinely lays off employees when work slows down, which it did starting in October of 2022, eventually laying off 18 employees, both white and black, by February of 2023 when Watts was terminated. Now, after a 2-day trial in May, the all-white 8-member jury deliberated for a few hours before returning a unanimous verdict in favor of Watts, finding specifically that J&L had reassigned him and terminated him because of his race and due to his protected activity of complaining about racial slurs. Now, I'll bet they were shocked and appalled when this all-white 8-member jury came back and didn't rule in their favor. Okay, I bet they couldn't believe it. Clearly, they were shocked. I bet they thought all of those people were just as racist as they were. Now, the verdict awarded him $639,000 and then $39,240 for lost wages and benefits, $200,000 in compensation for emotional pain and mental anguish, and $400,000 in punitive damages. Yeah, I bet they absolutely hate that they did that. So in his judgment issued on July the 8th, Judge Murray affirmed the jury's verdict and added another $338,000 in damages, $258,000 in front pay, and $80,000 in back pay for a total award of $978,075. He also denied Watts' request for injunctive relief in the form of training for J&L employees and a letter for recommendation from the company. Y'all hear this? So noting that the jury awarded more than we requested in May, Watts' attorney, Teresa Mastando, said in a statement that we believe this sends a strong message that intentional discrimination is not going to be tolerated and retaliation is in some ways worse as it punishes employees who bring bad acts to light. Now, Eric Atrip, co-counsel for Watts, told Atlanta Black Star that he was surprised to win such a substantial verdict on behalf from 8 conservative Caucasian jurors in a brutally conservative district in southern Alabama. He said that Watts was calm and composed when testifying about how the N-word was used and how complaining about it resulted in a demotion and cut in pay. After hearing testimony from the employer's witnesses, Atrip said, the jury found our client's version compelling and credible. Watts was injured on another job after he left J&L and has since been driving a peanut truck. And he's very happy with the large monetary award and was also surprised about the jury's verdict, according to Atrip, saying one of my key takeaways is that people are perhaps getting a little less complacent about overt racism and retaliation. Attorneys for J&L Industrial Services did not immediately respond to requests for comment from Atlanta Black Star. I'm sure they did. They had nothing to say. All right. They had nothing to say. Isn't that something? Isn't that something? Well, good for him. Good for him. Okay. So now, family, let's talk about this black teen. Says you don't have to come in for your next shift. Black teen fired from Florida Burger King after exposing coworkers' racist slur on video, but gets the last laugh. I absolutely love this, don't y'all? So, cell phone video posted to social media shows the moments a Burger King employee admitted to using racial slurs while on his headset with other employees, leading to a heated confrontation between him and 2 customers. The footage caught the moments the worker at a Burger King in Crystal River, Florida, confessed to using the N-word and then even repeatedly saying the slur. 2 women are seen confronting him and asking why he would use that language, and he responds that his coworker encouraged him to say the slur. So a TikTok user posted the video to the platform, okay, alleged that her 17-year-old daughter who worked at the restaurant heard the employee and her manager call her the N-word over the headset. They say customers overheard and stepped in to defend her, but the racist abuse continued. The video caption, this is what the video caption reads. When my granddaughter arrived to confront the situation, they fired my granddaughter. They fired her granddaughter, not the victim, not the abusers. This happens all too much, to be honest. This is commonplace in this country. The girl's family also called local deputies to the scene to report the harassment, but said they took no action. Well, it's really nothing they can do because somebody called you the N-word. Another video captured some time after the incident shows the teen worker inside the Burger King speaking with her shift manager, who tells her that she's been fired and doesn't need to come back to work, saying, "You don't have to come in for your next shift." That's what the manager said. An adult who accompanied her to the restaurant then confronts the young man and asks him why she's being let go. Atlanta Black Star reached out to Burger King to inquire whether the company was aware of the incident. In a statement, a company representative confirmed that the franchise fired the individuals involved in the incident, saying that we were deeply disturbed to learn of this incident. There's absolutely no place for racism or discrimination of any kind at Burger King. The franchisee has terminated the individuals involved and is taking the matter very seriously, including reviewing diversity and sensitivity training across their teams and reaching out directly to those impacted. So I guess the last laugh was the person got fired. I was hoping they got some money. But at the end of the day, you have to speak out about these sorts of things. You can't just let these people treat you all kinds of way and say all kinds of things to you when you're on a job, especially if it's not really a good job, okay? And it doesn't matter if it is a good job, but I'm just saying really specifically if it's a eat-ish job, okay? Is all I'm saying. All right, with that all being said, now listen to this. Everything but a child of God. White lawn worker calls Arizona black pastor a dumb jigger in a video, but then claims he was provoked. You all see, racism is alive and well and thriving, okay? But certain people want us to think that it's getting better. Yeah, absolutely not. A black pastor in Arizona filmed the moments that a man drove up and called him a racial slur the day after the man shoved him and sprayed him with a hose. Y'all hear this? This is all nefarious because, honey, if you drive up and spray me with a hose, you're not going to call me anything because you're going to be unable to talk with all those teeth down your throat. But let me continue. Because at that point, spraying someone with a hose and shoving them, well, that's assault. So I'll be forced to defend myself. But anyway, I digress. So with that being said, Pastor Paul Abram says that, who leads the Southern Avenue Missionary Baptist Church in South Phoenix, told local news outlets that he was watering the dirt along an easement on his property to tamp down dust for air quality when Brian Merrill confronted him. Merrill was reportedly hired to clear weeds on the other side of the easement. Abrams started filming Merrill when he pulled up in his SUV with the window rolled down. The now viral video shows Merrill telling Abram, "This is our easement here. We don't want water on our side, dumb jigger." Merrill then parks his car and appears to start complaining to someone on the phone. "I've been called everything but a child of God." This is what Abram told KPNX. At 62 years old, I have more time behind me than I have in front of me. And I want to be an example. You can agree to disagree, but don't use that word. I don't care if you're black or white. It's just not necessary. Now, the August 13th confrontation wasn't the first encounter Abram had with Merrill. Surveillance video from the day before shows Merrill shoving Abram and spraying him with water. Abram said Merrill was doing work on a neighboring property that was noisy and disruptive. When he asked Merrill when the work would end, Merrill told him to mind his own business and dropped a bunch of F-bombs and other derogatory terms. He then sprayed Abram's feet and pushed him. Abram looked to the woman who employed Merrill for support, but she said nothing. He says, I stumbled a bit when he sprayed me. I told the property owner, that's unacceptable. You can't do that. Honey, what are you telling the property manager for? He would have gotten a whole two-piece real quick. Okay, I promise you. You put your hands on me for any reason other than me giving you permission to do so, you're going to get these hands. But let me continue. So Merrill disputed Abrams' version of events, arguing that Abram brazenly confronted him, calling him an idiot and then assaulting. And y'all know what I'm talking about. That's what he said. And I'm sure he was lying. So in a phone interview, Merrill told the Arizona Republic that Abram is a social media nut who was full of crap. Merrill maintains that he was the one who was provoked by Abram, but acknowledged that using the slur was wrong and wants to remedy the situation. He claimed that following the viral video, internet sleuths have contacted the employers of his family members, seeking to have them terminated. I'm sincerely sorry this whole thing happened, but I swear to God on my life, I didn't go look for this problem. Of course you did. You literally pulled up to him. Clearly you were looking for trouble. Okay? Now, if he'd have pulled up on me, he'd have darn sure found it. But let me continue. Merrill's employer confirmed that Merrill called Abram a racial slur, but still defended Merrill's character, calling him unbelievably nice and helpful. She said there was some aggression on both sides and testosterone flying all over the place. How was there aggression on both sides when this man shoved Abrams and sprayed him with a water hose, and all Abrams did was come and tell the employer? Okay, I'd like to know. It wasn't like he yelled it. It wasn't like he yelled it. So that matters? That he didn't yell it? That he said it nice and soft? Ha! Is she serious right now? Her name's Diana Rogers. She says he just said it in very low terms, kind of under his breath almost. Back in April, Abram recorded Merrill lighting a large fire at a neighboring lot. The video was overlaid with text stating that Merrill tends to use racial slurs on a regular basis. Abram filed a police report for attempted assault in the August 13th incident and also reported the incident from the day prior. He said he also plans to file a harassment injunction against Merrill as well. What do you all think about this? What do you all have to say about this? Honey, these people are something else. This is something else. OG Patrice says, why does it even have to go so far until they do a little something about it? Okay, they're getting exposed for the overt racism. Shaking my head. Yeah, exactly. I find it all interesting. With that all being said, I'm about to conclude this broadcast. Okay, Luna, please be careful of what you put in the chat. Okay, I'm deleting your comments. Let's not use that word in the chat. You can abbreviate or something like that. A substitute word, the N word, say that, but don't use that word in the chat, please. Okay, goodness Reddit Bo said, Queen, I tried to find the most racist job and work there so I could sue. So I could sue too. Okay, not plotting a whole payout, beloved. Okay, not plotting a whole payout. So that have been said, OG Patrice says a lot of these racist people have cognitive dissonance when it comes to the truth about their own kind. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Nicole said, Queen, people are crazy. Some people absolutely are, and nefarious to boot. Okay, so with that all been said, listen, I'm about to be out of here. I hope you all enjoyed the broadcast. I hope you enjoy your strong end, not your weekend. Okay, leaving you in a weakened state of mind. Also, that's okay, Luna, beloved. I just don't want other people that may come in here who don't look like me to think they can use that word as well. Okay, and none of us should be using it, clearly. Okay, so anyway, with that all being said, I love you all to life. I hope you enjoy the rest of this evening. Each one teach one. That's how we grow and thrive. Do something productive, constructive, but never destructive. And always remember, beloveds, to keep the Most High first in your lives. Until next time, peace.
Hit him with that flavor all in my skin. God God all in my blood. Kings all in my circle, you touch one of mine and you're done. They show no love for the queen, why you hating on me? Is it cause I'm free and I got Malcolm X in my jeans? I got dreams like King Luther, shed blood like Kunta. You ain't helping my people, I ain't got nothing to say to ya. I want all the smoke like hookah. Talking reparations, America won't be great until they give us compensation. I'm like, I'm the hottest right now. See a bunch of lames out here trying to jock on my style. They be doing too much. I'm the queen, it's too easy. It's like they all at Popeyes, how they be talking so greasy. I just sit back and laugh while these haters get madder. So nefarious how they don't want my pockets with cheddar. I tell them they can do better. These snakes in the grass can leave a bite on your ass, cause y'all be trusting too fast. I got my foot on the gas, other one on they necks. Dropping receipts on haters, you better show some respect. I'm never facing regrets, we only facing the threats. Running through every challenge like a relay, break no sweat. It's a cold game, so I got that blanket with me. Now that my people awaken, ain't no going to sleep. I do not play by my piece, this time I'm playing for keeps. You talking slick, but when I see you like them ends, we gon' meet. And I got gold all in my skin, God all in my blood. Kings all in my circle, you touch one of mine and you done. They show no love for the queen, why they hating on me? Is it cause I'm free and I got Malcolm X in my jeans and I got gold all in my skin, God all in my blood. Kings all in my circle, you touch one of mine and you done. They show no love for the queen,